see you move like that. Like what? Like that. Let me see you move like that. Like what? Just like that. Let me see you move like that. Like what? Like that. Let me see you move like that.
Sony Music is a business that puts creators at the heart of the company, and our podcast division is where podcasters are artists. We have offices and studios in London, New York, and LA.
You get the gist.
Our passion is quality. We're obsessed with making premium podcasts that will thrill audiences, and our primary focus is entertainment. We have hit shows in comedy, film and TV, health and well-being, love and relationships, history. And we're delighted to say one of the biggest interview podcasts is coming to the Sony Music Entertainment Podcast Network. Elizabeth Day and How to Fail arrives January 2024. Our entertainment network delivers big, reliable, attractive audiences. And we have a range of innovative ways to deliver your message to them. For us, advertising goes beyond the mid-roll. Increasingly, this includes reaching audiences through video, with exciting brand integrations. We also have a series of established narrative feeds focused on short-run series that audiences love. We drop a major new series every month, delivering loyal and consistent audiences and inventory. We tell stories of true crime, incredible scams, and mind-blowing deception.
I had no idea what was going on with those two.
The critics love our storytelling too. And we produce fully branded podcasts for blue-chip clients like Chanel, PwC, Pearson, Pampers, and Red Bull. We run extensive marketing and PR campaigns that make sure we get noticed.
That's so good as an idea. It must have been done before.
And bring audiences to your brands and services. Sony Music, the home of premium, must-listen shows that engage, entertain, and delight audiences around the world.
Listen and follow wherever you get your podcasts.
Please welcome to the stage Sony Music Podcasts' Chris Skinner, Vice President and Head of Content UK.
Good afternoon. Hi, IAB Podcast Upfronts. I'm Chris Skinner. And I'm delighted to be coming here to represent what Sony Music Entertainment are doing in the podcasting space. We've existed in the audio entertainment industry for decades, and we're taking all that learning and putting it into the podcasting space. We have a few simple things that we always try to focus on. Principally, artists come first, and for us that applies 100%, whether it's the brilliant on-air talent or those working really hard behind the scenes on those programs. We also have a wider variety of podcasts than we've ever had before, each reaching a different, specific audience, meaning that we as a network can reach the widest possible communities. We have powerful franchises like Chameleon, Smokescreen, and Cover Up that deliver limited-run narrative series that engage with audiences week by week. In fact, these large, passionate audiences come to us collectively through the channel that we run called The Binge, which means that we are always on with our true crime limited run series. But we also really care about entertainment and always on entertainment programs. We have Commode and Mayo's Take, we have Where There's a Will, There's a Wake, with the fabulous Kathy Burke, and we have Jonathan Van Ness's Getting Curious, which is a wonderful addition to our slate. And they all share one really common thought, really. The quality is there. They are premium talent, and that focus on the audience so that every single program is delivering from the programming perspective right the way through to the brand partnerships on every single one of our programs. And we're going to bring some of that talent out today. I think it's really worth those guys meeting some of you here as well. And first out, I'm so excited to be bringing the latest addition to our slate, a woman who really needs little introduction, so I should shut up really. This is the host of How to Fail. Please welcome author and podcaster, Elizabeth Day. Please.
Hello.
Thank you so much for coming.
Oh, I'm so excited to be here.
How to Fail is a phenomenal show. We're talking a show approaching around 50 million downloads already. When you first came to the idea of making this show, what was your intention? What did you want to achieve?
I wanted to achieve feeling less like a failure myself. So the short story about how it came about was that I went through a decade of immense transition in my 30s, where professionally speaking, you might think on paper I seemed relatively successful. I was a Sunday newspaper writer, but personally speaking, things had really derailed. I'd got married to the wrong person, I'd got divorced, I'd tried and failed to have babies, and then I found myself 3 weeks from my 39th birthday, single, looking down the barrel of my 40s, feeling like a massive failure, and feeling that there was a disconnect between how I felt inside and how the outside world might have perceived my professional life. And because my background was in print journalism, I was very accustomed to doing celebrity interviews where we would generally focus on all the things that had gone right, on the movie that they wanted to promote, on the album that they had just released. And I found that structure quite limiting. So those two things came together, and I wanted to have an interview format where we spoke about the things that went wrong so that I could glean wisdom from how other people had survived those things and what, if anything, they had learned. And podcasting was just about taking off then. And because I was heartbroken, I couldn't listen to any music because every single pop song seemed to have specific resonance to my heartbreak. And so I started listening to podcasts, and I realized that it provided this really wonderful opportunity for the kind of interview I wanted to do. So that's how it started, but I could never have dreamed of what it's become. I could never have dreamed of the resonance that it has with others.
There was a wave of people launching chat shows, many of which have disappeared over the years. What really stands out about yours, and you mentioned it briefly there, was format. You didn't just want to talk to people about, albeit important things. You had a structure to the programme right from the outset. And that was planning before the first episode.
Yes.
How did that come into your thinking?
Well, again, because my background is in writing, I always knew about the power of three, about sort of grouping three words together, about something having a beginning, a middle, and an end. And so the format is that I ask a guest to come up with three failures in advance of recording. And what's great about that is that it provides a narrative structure to the interview, because sometimes interview formats can be so overlong and unwieldy. And I wanted the listener to feel that they were in a safe space too, that they knew where it was going. The other thing that's great about it is that it does a lot of the work for me. So when someone chooses a failure, the choice of failure is in and of itself really reflective of how they see that word. And that was the format that I started with, and it worked really well. And as the podcast has grown, I now get amazing guests who fully engage with what I'm trying to do, which is flipping failure on its head and showing that it's an opportunity to learn.
And you really get amazing guests as well. Just talk us through maybe some of the bigger names, or I guess I'm more interested in some of your favourite conversations that you've had.
I mean, a real pinch me moment was when Bernie Sanders turned up. And where I was recording at the time, it was required that you walk up 3 flights of stairs. And I felt like, God, if Bernie Sanders dies right here because I forced him to, he's a man in his 80s, that would not be a good look. He was incredible. I've just had Gillian Anderson on, which is going like wildfire.
Fantastic episode,
thank you. But I think my favourites, one of them was actually Alexandra Burke, who you might remember from the X Factor, obviously an incredible singer and dancer and performer. And that, I think, was one of her most vulnerable interviews ever, where she admitted that she felt that she had failed her mother in some way. Her mother died whilst Alexandra was performing in a West End show. And it was such a beautiful, tender, raw conversation about grief. And I know that it helped a lot of listeners as well. And then if I'm allowed one more, Mo Gaudat came on How to Fail way back in 2019. Yep. And he's this extraordinary guru who basically had come up with an algorithm for happiness. And he's one of my rare repeat guests. He's been back on 3 times since. And every time he comes on, I personally learn something that is so beneficial to how I live my life and how I deal with anxiety. So he's amazing as well.
We're hoping to do loads of new and exciting things with the programme in January. Talk to us, what are some of the things that you're hoping to achieve with the show 2024 and onwards?
First of all, I'm so excited to be joining Sony, Chris. Thank you so much. And one of the things
We're so happy to have you.
One of the things that I have loved about you and your team is that you completely understand and respect what How to Fail already is. But you, like I, see that there's a real opportunity for amplification and elevation, which I just haven't had the capacity or the technical skills to be able to do on my own. So I'm really excited about the YouTube channel we're going to have, the mid-form content, the 5 to 10 minute clips that perform really well. You're going to help me with that. We're going to have a crazily beautiful new studio.
We are.
We're going to have even better guests because now there's a whole guest booking team behind me. It's going to be completely wonderful. And I'm so excited about this new chapter because I really think it will just bring How to Fail to a bigger, wider audience while still retaining the fidelity of our core listenership.
Absolutely. And look, you know your audience so well. Talk to me. Who is the How to Fail listener?
Generally speaking, when I do a How to Fail live show, it is overwhelmingly people who would identify as female. However, that's changing, and they are bringing along their partners. And but the thing that surprised me when How to Fail really took off was how many listeners were in their 20s. I speak to you as a 44-year-old woman, and I wasn't expecting that. But actually, I think there's something so confusing about living through that decade, especially now in an age of so much pressure and social media and this constant curse of comparison. So a lot of 20-somethings come and listen to How to Fail to feel reassured that not everyone has it sorted and that actually role models or people that you see on the red carpet, they had their times of struggle too. And that's really at the foundational heart of How to Fail, is that it's aspirational and reassuring, and we forge more power through vulnerability. So I get a lot of 20-somethings. Having said that, I also get a lot of people in their 60s plus, and then everyone in between. So
we're all trying not to fail in our own unique ways. Yeah,
well, it's what makes us human.
Indeed. Finally, I want to talk about some of your favourite brand partnerships. I know we're quite short on time. Talk to me about a brand that you've worked with, you've really enjoyed the experience. You know, I think that's such an important part of why we're here today, to have those conversations.
I love working with advertisers, and I love getting genuinely enthusiastic about what I'm promoting because I think the listener can always tell. So for me, one of the most successful brand partnerships I've done is with Peloton, because I happen to be a Peloton evangelist. We got a Peloton in 2019 before the pandemic, before everyone else got on the bandwagon, and I still use it because it's such an effective way to exercise. And they came on board knowing that I already had this passion.
Yeah.
And again, they really listened to what I could bring to it, and it was very symbiotic. So we worked hand in hand to create something that was really special and long-lasting. So not only was I doing host reads and special sponsored episodes, I've also done events with them. They helped me with my book launch. So it's one of those things that I really like the fact that it's a long-lasting partnership. And then the other one that's still current at the moment is Airbnb. Again, I've used Airbnbs a lot myself, and so it always makes it so much more authentic if it can be organically enthusiastic.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We cannot wait to January 2024 to welcome you into the family. I want to pass over now to two other brilliant voices. First off, we have comedian and host of Shrink the Box, one of our shows, joined by historian, broadcaster and host of This Is History. It's Ben Bailey-Smith and Dan Jones.
All right.
Hello.
It's the middle-aged boy band you didn't know you wanted.
Could have done with some stools rather than the company chairs. Look, thank you all so much for having us. Thank you to Sony for bringing us here, Sony Music for bringing us here. I'm Dan Jones. I'm host of This Is History, A Dynasty to Die For, which is now in its third season, exploring the story of the Plantagenets, the family very few people can pronounce, but which was one of the most powerful and dysfunctional families in European history. And this is Ben Bailey-Smith, who hosts Shrink the Box, which is a podcast putting your favourite TV and film characters on the therapist's couch. So, Ben, let's start there. In Shrink the Box, you and a therapist examine the psyche of tons and tons of different characters. Shiv from Succession, Fleabag, Omar Little from The Wire was one of my favourites. Tell us a bit more about the format and how you go about choosing the characters to analyse.
Yeah, I mean, the format's kind of straightforward. Everything about it is kind of straightforward, which is the thing that I was into from the start. I always get a bit worried when people tell me about their podcasts and they're still telling me the format half an hour later, you know. This is super simple. We decided to just start with the most iconic characters, people that everybody had seen. So we started with Tony Soprano because he was actually in therapy. So it kind of made it straightforward. And then from there, once we started getting correspondence in, people just constantly, even now while we're on a break between seasons, just get constant streams of, you should do this character, you should do that character, which is great because it means we're connecting. But really the show is essentially, you know, we'll watch back the first season of whatever show the character's in. The psychotherapist will be looking at it from that angle. And I'll be looking at it a bit from there, but more just like as a fan of the show, right? So I'm like, I sort of represent the listeners. And then we get together and we sort of break down the behavioral traits that this character has, how we recognize those traits in real life, and whether we might have any like milder versions of that or what we can take from it, you know? And ultimately it becomes a celebration of writing, like really good writing. Because if the writing's bad, then the character's two-dimensional, we got nothing to analyze. So.
Absolutely, and I think writing is something that connects both of our podcasts in a way, in the sense that, you know, you're dealing with the narrative structures of these TV shows that really touched and emotionally engaged your listeners. And in This Is History, we're sort of building those kind of narratives. I mean, a lot of the structure that I've put into the scripts for This Is History is drawn from those shows that I loved when I was, you know, The Wire and The Sopranos, which were so carefully crafted. And what I've loved working in the podcast space is that in what is sometimes thought of as quite a scrappy industry, we're bringing this real craft of storytelling that's most commonly associated with, you know, elite HBO style television. We're bringing it on Sony Music to the podcast format with original score, with, you know, deep characterization of these historical figures. And the concept of Shrink the Box, I mean, you said it's simple, but for me it feels unique, and it's that emotional engagement that I really admire in what you're doing. How do you think that emotional engagement that you're getting from your listeners transfers into the advertising space? You know, what are you offering? From that perspective?
I mean, it's a weird one because obviously sometimes the episodes can get, you know, a little dark when we're, you know, discussing problematic themes or problematic behaviors and whatnot. So on the surface, it doesn't seem like the kind of thing you just want to pair up with, you know, the average brand. But the first thing I wanted to do straight away, brand-wise, was approach BetterHelp, because I was using them myself, and I was just like, it's a no-brainer. Like, I'd heard them advertised on other pods, and I just thought it's a match made in heaven. I can talk about it as a user rather than read it from a script. Yeah. So they'd always give me a script and I would just never read it. I would just go, this is what my experience of BetterHelp is.
Well, I think that really comes across in your read of the adverts, because you get that personal sense of engagement with the advertiser and with the product. It's funny we run BetterHelp on This Is History as well, and on the surface of things that seems like, I suppose it seems obvious, because the characters in the story of the Plantagenets could really have used some therapy. It would have made the history a lot less interesting, but it might have made their lives a little easier for them. I mean, one of the things that when I'm doing narrative storytelling, we've got great emotion, we've got great listener engagement with the show. We've got weirdly above 100%.
Yeah, and they're listening more than once.
They're listening more than once to the episodes,
and
they're not skipping episodes. And because it's a story that goes over, you know, every season tells a story, you have to listen. Yeah. Otherwise, you get lost. But when I'm writing the scripts, I always try and build towards an emotional climax within that story just as we enter the ad break, because I think that engagement is what listeners respond to so much. But look, I'm sure we could spend all day psychoanalyzing historical figures and TV characters, but the clock is ticking. So thank you so much for chatting.
No, thank you.
And we're going to hand over now to our pal Kathy Burke and some of the other fabulous talent from across Sony Music's podcast network.
There we go.
So, I'm the host of Where There's a Will, There's a Wake, and oh, hang on a minute. What's that whiff? Ooh, it's a a bit of a stench. It's not sweat exactly. What is it? Oh, I know. It's money. So you, I hear, are the most important people in Adland, and you know how to spend it. And why would you want to spend your advertising cash with us, eh? Well, I can't think of another show that's had a greased-up Bob Mortimer fighting a Romanian bear to the death that made the front page of a national newspaper. So you'll hear big names answer questions that they've never been asked before. People like James Acaster, Vogue Williams and Alan Carr, who have all died in my presence. So on that, Fern, you came on the show. Did you want to be reincarnated as animal, vegetable or mineral?
Well, Kathy, I'd definitely come back as a mineral. By the way, I'm Fern Brady, and I'm the host of the brand new comedy food podcast, What a Combo. Basically, if you're the type of person who enjoys dipping a gherkin in jam, or worse, wants to watch some poor soul do it on camera, then this is the show for you. Each week, we're joined by people from the world of comedy, like the hilarious Tim Key, or people from the world of food, like Bake Off's Nadia Hussain. Our video episodes are being released with the mega food social channel Twisted, which means you can advertise with us on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube, as well as on the podcast. By the way, I love bread, so if anyone wants me to advertise bread, that would be amazing. Speaking of food, here's legend Ed Edmondson, who is the brand new host of Out to Lunch. Isn't that right, Ed?
Hi, Fern. How's it going? When are we going out to lunch? Because Out to Lunch is now in its 9th season, and yours truly, Ed Edmondson, is now presenting it. Yes, that's right. It's the podcast in which I take fascinating people out for a slap-up lunch. I ply them with interesting foods and some alcohol, and they simply tell me all their secrets. This season I'm taking out Chrissy Hind, Michael Sheen, Sir Ian Rankin, and you get to feel like you're sitting on the table next to us, earwigging.
So there you have it, you wonderful twits, a pack of podcasting beauties dying to get their hands on your moolah.
Thank you, gents. Thank you. Thanks so much to Ben and Dan, and thank you to Elizabeth too. We'd love to partner with you guys. We make a wide range of shows. We think we've got something for every kind of audience. You can drop us a line, podcast@sales@sonymusic.com, and we're over there somewhere. So thank you so much for your time. It's much appreciated.